making a magic circle. To make a magic circle, wrap the yarn like this and form an X, and then insert the hook facing away from us, and then pull the top yarn and twist it, and then pull a loop and pull it through the loop on the hook, and you have a magic circle. In the magic circle, we're going to make 6 single crochets. So insert the hook through and pull a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2. That's your first single crochet. Make sure you add a stitch mark at the beginning of each round. So every first single crochet, make sure you add a stitch marker. Continue to make 6 single crochets. So we already did 1, that's 2. So we're making 6 single crochets total in the circle. That's 3. And then 4 and 5. And just one more, 6. So that's 6 single crochets in the magic circle. Make sure you count that you have 6, and then pull at the short tail of the yarn to close the circle. After we finish for the first round of 6 single crochets, remove the stitch marker, and then we're going to place an increase in that first stitch. We're not slip stitching, we're not chaining. We're immediately starting the second round by inserting the hook and making a single crochet. And then remember, in that first single crochet, always put a stitch marker. So put a stitch marker, and in that same space, in the same stitch, you're going to make another single crochet. So that's a single crochet increase. So 2 stitches in 1 stitch. So since we had 6 stitches in the previous round, in this round we're going to have 12 stitches. So just continue to make 2 single crochets in each stitch until we have 12. So in that second stitch, we're making 2 single crochets. And then just continue until we have 12. So this round is completed and I have 12 stitches. Now remove that stitch marker, and then we're not slip stitching or chaining. We're immediately going in that first single crochet to make another single. So make a single crochet and then put a stitch marker. And then in the second stitch, we're going to make an increase. So make 2 single crochets in the second stitch. Just 1 and 2. So for this round, we're going to make 1 single crochet by itself and a single crochet increase. So 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. So just continue to do that. 1 single crochet, and then 2 in 1 stitch, and then 1 by itself, and then 2. Continue to do that until you have 18 stitches total. And then the last stitch should always be an increase. So I'll meet you back once we have 18 stitches for this round. Now remove the stitch marker, and for the next 4 rounds, we're just going to do a single crochet in each stitch. And make sure you always mark the first stitch. So we're going to have 18 stitches for the next 4 rounds. So continue with this round until you reach 18 stitches, and then I will meet you back at the end of this round. So I'm done with round 4, and you should have 18 stitches here. And now just continue. Remove the stitch marker and then put a single crochet, and then make sure you mark it. So that would be round 5. And then do the same thing for rounds 6 and 7. So just have 18 single crochets until we reach round 7. So I'll meet you back once we're done with round 7. So at the end of round 7, you should have 18 stitches total. And then you can remove that stitch marker. And then now we're going to do 1 single crochet and mark it. And then in the next stitch, we're going to make a decrease. To make a decrease, find those V's and find the front loop, so the loop facing us, and insert the hook in front of it like that. And do that to the next stitch too. So do that to 2 stitches. So again, find the V's and then insert the hook in the middle on 2 stitches, and then yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So we just turned 2 stitches into 1. So here we're just going to be making decreases. So we're making 1 single crochet and a decrease. So again, to make the decreases, find the V's for 2 stitches. And put it in front of the front loop. Put the hook in front of the front loop. And then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's a decrease. So we started this round with 18 stitches and we're going to end it with 12 stitches. So we're going to continue by making 1 single crochet and a decrease, 1 single crochet and a decrease until we have 12 stitches, and I'll meet you back once we have 12 stitches. So here your last stitch should be a decrease. And then now just get filling and stuff the circle that we have so far with filling. And then you can remove that stitch marker. And then for this last round for the circle, we're just going to make decreases all around. So find the first and second V's. And then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and make sure you mark it. And so we're just going to make 6 stitches total because we started the round with 12 stitches. We're going to end it with 6 since we're making decreases in every stitch. So just find the front loop of every 2 stitches and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then at the end of this round, we should have 6 stitches total. So here I'm making my last decrease, and this is the 6th decrease. And this round should be completed. Now you can pull the yarn and cut it. Now get a darning needle and insert that tail end, and then you can remove that stitch marker. And then in that front loop of that first stitch, just insert the darning needle and then do that to the other stitches. So 1, 2, and that's our 3rd stitch, 4, 5, and 6. And then you can pull at it to close the circle completely, and then you can start weaving it in. So just insert the darning needle through the circle and pull it from the other side. And then do that a few times before cutting the yarn. And we're not going to need this ball anymore until the end, so after you cut the yarn, you can place it aside. Now we're going to make the cape for the ghost, so just make a magic circle again, using the same color. And then inside the magic circle, you're going to make 6 single crochets. And then always remember to mark the first single crochet that you do. And so now just continue to make 6 single crochets. And then pull at the yarn at the short tail end of the yarn. And then for the next round, we're going to make increases, kind of like what we did with the ball. We're just going to make 2 single crochets in each stitch all around. So 2 single crochets in each stitch until we have 12 stitches. So here just continue to make 2 single crochets in each stitch all around, and I'll meet you at the end of this round when we have 12 stitches. So here I have 12 stitches, and you can remove the stitch marker, and then in that first single crochet that we did, we're gonna make a single crochet. So just 1 single crochet and then mark it. And then in the next stitch, you're going to make 2 single crochets. So we're kind of doing the same thing we did for the ball. You're going to do 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, so a single crochet increase until we have 18 stitches total for this round. And I'll meet you at the end of this round when we have 18 stitches total. So here I have 18 stitches. Now remove the stitch marker, and then for this next round we're just going to make 18 stitches total. So we're going to make a single crochet on top of each single crochet until we have 18 stitches. So just for this round you're going to make 18 stitches, so 1 stitch on top of each stitch. And so just continue making stitches until we have 18, so until we reach that stitch marker, and I'll meet you back once we reach the stitch marker. Okay, now for this next round, you can remove the stitch marker, and then we're going to make a single crochet, and then put a stitch marker there. And then in the next stitch, you're going to make a single crochet by itself too. And then in the third stitch, you're going to make an increase, so 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So for this round, you're going to make a single crochet, and an increase. So 1, 2, and an increase. And then just keep going until you have 24 stitches or until you reach the stitch marker. The last stitch of this round should be an increase. And I'll meet you back once we reach the stitch marker. Okay, so here we have 24 stitches. Our last stitch was an increase, so we did 2 stitches in one. And then you can remove the stitch marker, and then we're just gonna do 24 single crochets for this next round. So mark the first single crochet and then just keep doing 1 single crochet on top of each single crochet until we reach the stitch marker. So no increases this round, just 24 single crochets. Okay, now we have 24 single crochets, and now you can remove the stitch marker. So for this next round, go ahead and put a single crochet and a stitch marker. And then in the next stitch, put a single crochet. In the third stitch, put a single crochet. And then in the fourth stitch, you're going to do an increase, so 2 stitches in 1 stitch. And so for this round, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 2, 3, and then in the fourth stitch, you're going to do 2. And then at the end of the round, we should have 30 stitches total. And so just continue making a single crochet in 3 single crochets and then an increase. Okay, so after that last stitch, which was an increase, we should have 30 stitches, and then remove the stitch marker, and then now we're just going to put a single crochet on top of each stitch for this round. We will not do any increases for this round, just 30 single crochets until we reach the stitch marker. And so just keep going with that, and I will meet you at the end of this round, and you should have 30 single crochet at the end of the round. Okay, now remove the stitch marker, and then we will start this next round by making a single crochet and then put the stitch marker. And then make another single crochet, and then a third single crochet, and then a 4th single crochet. And then in that 5th stitch is where we'll make an increase. So for this round, you will make 4 single crochets and then an increase. So just keep going with that until we reach the stitch marker. 4 single crochets by themselves and an increase. And I'll meet you back at the end of the round. So at the end of the round, we did an increase, and then we should have 36 stitches total. Then remove the stitch marker, and then do a single crochet. And then for this next round, we'll just make 36 single crochets by themselves. No increases, just 36 stitches. And I'll meet you back at the end of the round when we reach the stitch marker. Okay, now for this next round, you can remove the stitch marker. And then we're going to do a single crochet and then put a stitch marker. And so for this round, we're doing 5 single crochets and an increase. So that's 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1. That's 3, 4, 5. And in the 6th stitch is where we will make our increase. So in that 6th stitch, make an increase. And at the end of the round, you should have 42 stitches. And remember, the last stitch is always an increase. So just keep going with that, 5 stitches and then an increase. And I'll meet you back at the end of the round when we have 42 stitches. Okay, so now for this round, just remove the stitch marker and just continue by doing 42 stitches. No increases for this round. Just do a single crochet on top of each single crochet until we have 42 single crochets. And so at the end of this round, we'll have 42 stitches, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round when we reach the stitch marker. Okay, for this next round, remove the stitch marker and then make a single crochet and then put the stitch marker back on. And for this round, we will do 6 single crochet and then an increase. So just do a single crochet in 6 stitches, and then in the 7th stitch, we'll make an increase. And so just continue to do that. Make sure you increase after every 6 stitches. So in the 7th stitch, make sure you increase. And then I will meet you back at the end of the round when we have 48 stitches total. Now for this next round, remove the stitch marker and then we will make 48 stitches. So just a single crochet on top of each stitch. No increases for this round until we hit 48 stitches or until we reach the stitch marker. So just keep going, place 1 single crochet in each stitch, and I will meet you back at the end of this round. So for those next few rounds, I'm actually going to write the pattern for you on the screen and you should follow it. And so the next round, you're just going to do the 7 single crochets and then an increase, and then that will give us 54 stitches. And then after that, you'll just do 54 stitches by themselves, and then you'll do 8 single crochets and then an increase, and then that will give us 60 stitches. And then for the round after that, you'll just do 60 single crochets by themselves, and then you'll do 9 single crochets and then an increase, and that will give us 66 stitches. And then you'll do just 66 stitches by themselves. And then for the last round, you'll do 10 single crochets and then an increase. And then that will give us 72 stitches total. And for the last round, you will just do 72 single crochets by themselves. And so I will speed up this part of the video just because it's the same exact thing that we've been doing for the last 6 rounds. So just keep going, and then I will meet you at that last round where we will do those 72 single crochets by themselves. Okay, so after that last round, you should have 72 stitches. And then you can remove the stitch marker, and then we'll do a slip stitch. So insert the hook and pull the yarn and pull it through the loop on the hook. And you should have a slip stitch, then chain 1, pull the yarn and cut it. And then get your darning needle and we'll just weave in the ends through the inside of the cape. Now grab the ball we made at first and just put it inside to see what it would look like when we sew it in. And then decide where you want to place the safety eyes. So for me, I want them at the top of the head. And so I'm just going to place them there. Then you can remove the ball. Before you place the eyes, remove the ball. And then place the eyes. And now get the ball that we made at first and just put it inside. And then we're going to grab a piece of long yarn and then just cut that. And then put that yarn through a darning needle. And then insert the darning needle through the middle like this, and then pull it from top. And then when you pull the yarn, don't pull it all the way. Leave a tail in the bottom. We will secure this, weave it in at the end so that it doesn't unravel. And now we're just kind of going to sew the ball into the ghost head. And make sure you don't cut the yarn yet. Now we're just going to make those little dents in the cape. So just do it like this. And then insert the darning needle through the inside to the outside. Make a spot right next to where we just came out. Super close to it. And come out on the other side. And that will kind of give us those little ruffles in the cape. And then just keep doing that for this side. Do it a few times and then do it all over, all around the ghost cape. And so just keep doing that a few more times until you like the shape of the cape for the ghost. Now for the bow, grab the color you want for the bow and make a slip knot. And then I'm going to use a 2mm hook here just because it's easier to slip stitch through it. And just insert it somewhere in the ghost where you want the bow to be. And then grab the yarn and do a slip stitch through the hook that's on the loop. And then after you make the slip stitch, you can pull the yarn a little bit and put the 4mm hook back. And now chain about 10 to 15, depending on how long you want your bow to be. I'm chaining about 10. Once you have about 10 chains here, you can pull the pull the yarn and then cut it. And now do the same thing right next to the first chain that we did. So insert a smaller hook and then go right next to it, right next to the first chain. And then make a slip stitch. And then put back your bigger hook and chain the same amount of chains that you did for the other chain. So 10 to 15. And then just keep chaining until you reach the amount of chains you need, and then pull the yarn and cut it again. And then now you can make the bow. Just tie it around the head of the ghost. And then use a darning needle to move those leftover tail ends of the bow inside the ghost cape. Now grab the white yarn again and make a slip knot. And then insert the hook through the middle and make a slip stitch. And then chain 25. You can change more or less depending on how long you want that little strap to be. For me, I just want to chain 25. After you chain 25, go back in the same space and then make a slip stitch. And then now you can chain 1, pull the yarn and cut it. And then just get your darning needle again and push those tail ends inside the ghost. And then you can weave them in at the bottom. And then after you weave in the ends, your ghost is completed. Thank you so much for watching.